What is going on, everybody? Schuyler Callihan here on Between the Ears. And so much for the getting away from the transfer portal stuff. I thought we were kind of past that for a little bit until some real moving and shaking started happening. But I've got a lot of people in my DMs on Twitter or X asking me a bunch of questions about kind of the process of portal recruiting. What's allowed, what's not allowed, how does the money get sent out to different players, who can be in contact, all that different stuff. And so I figured this would be the best time to do it, just address it right here. So I mentioned this a couple days ago. I don't know if it was on this particular show or not, but coaches cannot have any interaction with players when it comes to money. Zero. Nobody at the school is allowed to have any affiliation with the money as of today. Now, Charlie Baker, the president of the NCAA, is trying to make all these complete changes and stuff with not only the transfer portal itself and that guys can transfer and be immediately eligible, even with their second or third or fourth transfer, but there's also this pitch to allow schools to just pay the players. And in some respects, it makes a lot of sense because the collectives that deal with this may not exactly know. I mean, they have a hunch, they probably get told certain things, but it's hard to know what they need, and it's hard for the coaches to kind of get that message relayed to the people that are handling the money. And it just would take out that third, not that the collectives would go away, but it would eliminate a lot of confusion, I think, not only for the fans, but for the coaches, the administrators, the people that run the collective, the recruits. So I do think in some ways it makes a lot of sense. The big problem is you're going to have so many schools operating, and you already do, with deeper pockets than others. And this is a similar issue that's going on in Major League Baseball, the Shohei Ohtani thing, right? Dude just signed a $700 million deal with the Dodgers, and he's deferring so much of that money because he can. There's no rules against it. There's also no salary cap in baseball. There's also no salary floor in baseball. So the big issue there is there's only a handful of teams that can seriously contend for a player like Shohei Ohtani. And much like in college sports, there's no salary cap. So when there's no salary cap and there's quarterbacks out here in the portal demanding $1 to $2 million, there's only a few schools out there that can legitimately enter themselves in the mix for said player. West Virginia is not one of them. I'm going to tell you that right now. And that's exactly why they're going after some of these group of five transfers, these FCS guys, these kids coming from Canada in every which direction. That is why they're going after those guys instead of the big name stars that you're seeing these other schools go after. I explained that in great detail on a show last week. But back to the point of this show. The handling of the money, who can do it, who can't. Again, coaches cannot have any conversations about money. Even if they have a little bit of a conversation, that's against the rules. It's a violation. It's a big, big no-no. And I guess depending on what school you are, the NCAA can give you a very major, I don't want to say fine, but a major penalty, or you'll just get a slap on the wrist, or you'll get ignored. This is also a time of year where rules are broken. There's going to be schools that tamper. Happens every single year. Two players at West Virginia and to players around the country. There's so much of this going on, and to be honest with you, I don't really know how you police it. There's got to be a way somehow to police it, um, but that's not for me to figure out. The collectives, again, they are the only ones that can have conversations about money. So someone asked me yesterday, why didn't Jaheim White, or why is Jaheim White committing to Country Roads Trust? Why is he committing to them? And why is he even making this type of announcement? Two things. One, it's to relieve the stress of him potentially entering the portal, and he can still do that. These are not binding contracts. So even though he has committed to a partnership with the trust, it doesn't 100% guarantee that he won't hop in the portal. He can still do that. And there's essentially no rule or law that he's breaking. Just like the trust, if they say, all right, Jaheim, we'll get you this NIL package where you're going to get X amount of dollars. That way you stay here at West Virginia. If they don't live up to that, there's no law or rule that they're going against. It's very much a verbal agreement, and you're banking on each other to be honest, to be transparent, and that's tough. There's a lot of these kids going around thinking they're going to get hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even millions of dollars, and they get told that, they commit to that school, they go to that school, they enroll, they start playing, the money never shows up, or at least the money that they thought they were getting never shows up. And then guess what? They're stuck. They're stuck. They can't go anywhere. After you transfer that second time, or after you transfer the first time, if you want to leave that second school, you gotta sit out of here, the rules currently state. Now they're having a meeting on all this stuff today, but that's a big problem. But Jaheim not only is doing that to relieve the stress of maybe some fans, but it's also because he didn't necessarily get that NIL package coming out of high school. He was overlooked, he was over recruited or under recruited, and West Virginia probably didn't feel the need to go and offer a lot of money to Jaheim coming out of high school, or the collective. Um, a big part of it too is it's also maybe saying, hey, look, I'm staying here. Schools that are maybe going to try and contact me, even though I'm not in the portal, I'm not going anywhere. That's his public announcement, his PSA. But it's still going to happen. I'm sure there's going to be coaches, not only to him, but maybe other players on the roster that get contacted that are not in the portal. That is illegal. That cannot happen. That is 100% against the NCAA rules. And again, depending on who you are, you'll get in trouble. But for guys like Jaheim and most kids probably coming out of high school, they're not going to get money. And I think you're going to see that trend be the case. We saw a couple years ago these high school quarterbacks getting these big NIL deals, and it'll still happen, like the Arch Mannings of the world and whatnot. But I really don't think you're going to see much money be spent on these high school kids because, quite frankly, they're unproven commodities. You have no idea what you're getting. It might be a top kid at quarterback. It might be one of the top 5 receivers in the country. But how often have we seen those players turn out to be duds? And they end up transferring down to, a group of 5 or FCS or whatever the case may be. I really think you're going to see the majority of the money be spent on proven guys that have played elsewhere. Example, I don't know their money situation, like Dylan Gabriel, Oklahoma, those guys, and the way they spend their money. I think that's where you're going to see the money go. And the high school kids are just going to have to rely on proving themselves once they get to college. So, that's pretty much the gist of it. Again, collectives, they can talk about money to the kids. They can talk about money to a certain extent. They can't say necessarily, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars to stay at this school. That's not necessarily what it is. It's a third party situation. Yes, there is a partnership, a loosely tied affiliation between the collective and the school, but they can't just go to said player and say, we're going to pay you to stay here. It's more of an opportunity for NIL situations where, the collective works with local businesses, and they may appear on a GoMart commercial or Parmar, or, whatever brewery is around, stuff like that. Those opportunities are there. Now, from the coaching side of it, West Virginia, again, they can't go to Country Roads Trust and say, "Hey, this kid in the portal, we're going after him. We need fill in the blank amount of dollars." They can't do that. They can't say, we're going to need this much for this guy, this much for this position. That's not how it works. There's a budget that they work with, and again, it's kind of they have to be very careful with how they work in conjunction with the trust. But it's more about the opportunities that are lying within the trust. WVU can have some conversations and say, this is what type of money that we're going to potentially need to attract prospective student athletes to WVU, but it can't have anything to do with positions, certain players, anything like that. They can go there and say, look, this is what it's going to take for us to be competitive. This is what it's going to take for us, to do our to compete against other schools in the Big 12 nationally. But when it gets down to the specifics, they can't do that. I think at some point that's going to change. And again, I think you'll have more of a direct relationship between the two. There's not this, how much money do we have in the trust? How much can we spend? Who are we looking at so we can prepare NIL packages and so what and so forth. So that stuff I think is going to come. Right now, it can't. But the other part of it that, again, I kind of addressed a couple of times here, but I do want to make sure we make very clear: players cannot talk to other schools, and other schools cannot talk to players if they are not in the transfer portal. Even if they have intentions of going to the portal, even if they put on Twitter, I intend to enter the transfer portal, and they haven't officially entered. There's like a 48-hour window where the school has that allotted time to officially submit all the paperwork, get them in the system, and then they're in the portal. From the time the kid may have posted on social media to the time he officially enters, if there's any contact in that time, that's still a no-no. Can't happen. So it's a hard thing to police, which is, again, I think why they're trying to go away from it. But there's a lot of problems that go on with trying to police it. There's a lot of different ways you can go about it, but I just don't think there's a perfect solution. But we'll see how this all plays out. Yeah, welcome to portal season, folks. It's going to be crazy. There's going to be tampering. There's going to be kids leaving left and right that you don't think are going to leave. There's going to be kids that West Virginia brings in. It's madness right now. You got to recruit your own, re-recruit your own roster. You got to recruit kids in the portal. You got to recruit the JUCO ranks, recruit all these other options that are existing in the portal from every which level of college. It's crazy. So buckle up. Next couple of weeks is going to be crazy, and we'll be here to cover it all here on Mountaineers Now. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Mountaineers Now, and you can also follow us on X at the same handle. I'm Schuyler Callihan. You've been listening to Between the Ears, and we'll be back here tomorrow with another episode.